Hello, and welcome back to the reading of Land and Sea. And let's just get started with this immediately. Why do I keep saying that? I don't know. Chapter 32. I awoke to the smell of smoked salmon. It had been a while since I had any, and I wanted to go and grab some. I got out of bed and raced to the fire, and saw everybody sitting there. They had plates in hand, a whole fish each. Peter walked up to me and handed me a plate. "Take a seat," Peter said. He gestured towards a new tree stump throne that was right next to his. "Thank you," I said, and I sat down. It was a perfect fit, and I found it so comfortable that I thought they had put a cushion on there. "Do you like it?" Peter asked. I nodded my head and took a bite of the salmon. It was amazing. The boys must have watched my every move when I had made them salmon. That was good, since I didn't want them to forget the dish. "How did you guys do it? This dish took me 2 years to perfect," I said. "We had 28. What do you expect?" Felix replied. "Okay, fair point. So do you have any new recruits?" I asked. "Not too many. I think 1 or 2. "Oh, okay. So what are we going to do about Henry?" "Try to get him to be a lost boy, and then get him to trust me." "That sounds fine, but Emma and Regina will stop at nothing to get him back. Trust me, the family motto is we'll always find each other. Annoying, yes, but true, yes as well. It is tough to try and ignore it." "Well, Emily, the game has begun," Peter said. "Sure, and I think that we are going to enjoy this one," I said. I grabbed a tube of pixie dust from around Peter's neck and sprinkled it over my head. I jumped into the air and began to fly. "Oh, Emily, what are you doing?" Peter asked playfully. "You'll have to catch me to find out," I called, and then I zoomed away. I went so fast that it brought tears into my eyes. I laughed the whole way, hearing Peter calling out behind me. "Emily, where are we going?" "You'll see, Slowpoke." I sped up until I reached my destination, the bay where my father's ship used to be parked, but it was there. I flew down onto the deck, startling the people on board. "What are you doing here?" my father asked. He seemed not to recognize me in my green-dyed pirate suit. "Don't you recognize me?" I said, smoothing my hair down. I put on Peter's classic grin and wanted to scare my father, and indeed, he did jump. "Emily, where is Henry, and how did you get here?" Emma asked. "Oh, no need to be so serious, Emma. I got here the same way Henry did, with the same magic beam. And by my guess, that is how you got here as well," I replied. "All right, that's it. Let me at her," Regina said. She was angry. "Oh, Regina, if you hurt me, you hurt Henry. That's just the way of the game." "What game? We were never playing any game," Snow said. "Oh, but from the moment you got to Neverland you were playing the game. It's just how the island works. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go home." "See you all later," I said, and I lifted off. This was going to be an amazing game. Chapter 33. "Did you scare them?" Peter asked. He had been waiting in a tree near the beach. "Of course I did, although Regina almost snapped my neck. That was pretty funny." "I bet. Come on, let's get back to the boys," Peter said. We flew over the island, enjoying the sights and sounds of it all. "Hey, what is that down there?" I called out to Peter. I had to yell to be heard above the wind. "An ex-fairy moved onto the island a few years back. I let her, of course, but I don't trust her." "Fair enough." We were nearing the edges of the camp. The boys were looking up in excitement. They hadn't seen Peter this happy for 28 years, and now he was smiling. That was huge for them. "Hey, Emily, what is Henry doing?" Peter asked. Henry was sitting alone at the edge of the camp. "I'll go talk to him," I replied. I walked swiftly over to Henry, not wanting to get him too startled. I poked him on the shoulder to tell him that I was there. "Hey, Emily, where were you? I looked everywhere for you, but I couldn't see you anywhere, and the boys wouldn't tell me where you were," Henry said. "I was flying around the island, pulling some pranks on a ship at the beach," I replied. "Wait, is it Regina and Emma? Are they here?" Henry asked. "No, just some pirates thinking they found an island that was full of gold and other treasures. It's just the way pirates are," I said. And it was true. I, of all people, should have known. Oh, okay. But can I go flying sometime? I glanced over at Peter. He was busy talking to Felix. Tonight, I'll come wake you up, and then we can go fly, I whispered to Henry. What about Peter? Won't he wonder where you are? He'll think that I went for a walk around the island. He won't suspect a thing. Peter was walking towards us. All right, Henry, are you ready for training? Peter asked. What kind of training? Henry replied. Well, training to be a lost boy, of course. Why else do you think I brought you here? Or did Emily already tell you? Peter questioned Henry. No, Emily hasn't told me anything about why I'm here. And who said that I was going to be a lost boy? Henry replied. Well, your parents aren't coming to get you. They've already given up. They think that you are either dead or not the same, so they are just forgetting you. But they wouldn't do that. They would say that we would always find each other in the end, Henry shot back. He was getting angry, and so was Peter. You know what? No, you don't get to train. We'll just have to see how you act later at the dance tonight, Peter said, and he stalked away. Geez, what's his problem? And what's a dance? Henry asked. Oh, just 28 years of being away from the one he loves most changed him. He's trying to get back to his old self, and he's throwing a dance, which is basically the boys yelling and dancing around a fire. Honestly, it's pretty fun. I think you'll like it, I said. I went after Peter, wanting to help him cool down. Hey, what are you doing here? I thought you were back in camp, Peter asked. He had a sad look on his face. Something had to be wrong. Peter, what is wrong with you? You haven't been yourself lately. I miss you so much. I can't believe I lost you for so long. I was so worried that something bad would happen to you. Oh, you don't need to worry about me. I am perfectly fine, especially now that I'm back on the island. We're back together again, but what more could we ask for? I don't know, a kid? That we have, but I'm just missing something. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there is definitely something missing in our life. Maybe you miss your son. You should visit him. He's on the island. I don't see any harm in it. You have not changed a single bit. And neither have you. Chapter 34. Peter arrived in a clearing in the middle of the woods. Rumpelstiltskin was sitting on near a fire in the middle of a makeshift camp. He had the Dark One's dagger out, as if he was about to stab himself. No, it can't be. My son cannot be the Dark One. It is completely impossible. He's just as much a coward as me. Peter couldn't bring himself to walk into the camp. Maybe you should bring him breakfast in the morning, the shadow said, making fever jump out of his skin. What do you want? Oh, I was just flying around the island when I saw you heading over here. I thought that I should inspect what was going on, since it seemed as though you would never leave the girl's side after what happened. Well, I have news for you. I am not going to hide in camp, not even if it means revealing myself to that shameful crew of hooks. I think that we should have the game heightened, first starting with getting that ridiculous boy to trust me enough to give me the heart. I need that thing to live. You know that. I do, and that is why you must be in camp with him, so that you can gain his trust. He will not gain it by spying on his grandfather. Wait, grandfather? Oh, Emily must not have told you yet. Ask her about it when you get back to the camp. The shadow flew off into the chilling morning air. Drat that stupid shadow! Why can't he just keep to himself? Peter muttered under his breath. Then he flew away. Chapter 35. The Lost Boys were out fishing, and Henry and I were left alone in camp. Peter had gone to keep an eye on my father, and leaving me to look after Henry. Hey, you want to do something fun? I asked him. What kind of fun? Lost Boy fun or Storybook fun? I call it pirate fun, I said, grabbing a coconut from a tree. How do you play? The goal is to not let the other person into your goal while trying to get your coconut into theirs. Kind of like soccer, but with a twist. What kind of a twist? You're in the water. I grabbed hold of Henry's jacket and teleported us to the opposite side of the island. Where are we? On the island. We're not allowed to leave here without Peter's permission. So, I thought we should come over here. There are no mermaids whatsoever over here, so we should be safe. I'll set up the goals. I snapped my fingers, and 2 wooden goals appeared. Whoa, this is so cool. Just imagine what would happen if we got Peter and the Lost Boys to play. I laughed out, giggling like a madman. All right, I'm ready, Henry said. I threw a coconut at him, then made his voice go off in the air. The game will start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I chucked my coconut at Henry, but he used his to knock it back. We went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until I finally made a goal. The voice yelled, "Goal!" and the game ended. Nice job, Henry. I didn't think you would be so good. Thank you, but I was not nearly as good as you. You got that right. We walked back to camp, hearing rustling around us. The Lost Boys must have been returning to camp alongside us. Hello, Emily. Henry. Do you know where Pan is? Felix asked, coming up to us. He startled Henry, making him jump into my arms. Don't worry, buddy. It's only Felix, I said in a soothing voice. It seemed to work, since Henry slowly let go of me. Whoops. Sorry, Emily. I'm fine. Felix? Peter is patrolling the island. Some pirates were spotted, and he wanted to investigate. In fact, I believe that's him right there. And indeed it was. Peter walks up to us, a slight bounce in his step. He seemed happier than normal. Maybe he found that something that he was missing. Hello, Emily, Henry, Felix. The pirates are going to leave us alone. They made a deal with me. Their freedom for their lives. That makes no sense. But okay. What are you so happy about? I asked. Henry and Felix were walking away to leave us in private. Oh, nothing. I just had a great idea about what we should do tonight instead of a dance. Oh, and what could that be? Well, the boys will still have the dance, but you, Henry, and I will all be doing something else. And that is a little swimming around, maybe some fishing. I don't know, just some fun lake stuff. I thought that you and Henry might enjoy that kind of thing. That sounds perfect. I probably couldn't even think of that. Where did you even come up with the idea? I thought that because of your pirate background you might like it, and Henry would probably enjoy something that he might remember from Storybrooke. So this is all a part of your master plan. You could say that. You'll just have to find out. Chapter 36. It was nearing 9, and Peter was ready to go. I hadn't told Henry about our little party, so I just put a blindfold over his eyes. You just have to trust me, Henry. I promise that where we are going is somewhere fun, and I hoped that I would not let him down. Peter teleported us to another beach, where a barbecue was set up. There were swimming suits laid out, and a little changing area for us. I moved the blindfold away from Henry's eyes, and he gasped in excitement. Where are we? Henry asked. We, Henry, are in paradise, Peter said. It was actually nice to see Peter actually smiling. Henry was smiling as well, and I guess I was smiling. I called changing first, I grabbed the bikini Peter had laid out for me. Once again, it was a perfect fit. It was a green suit with jungle designs all over it. I thought it looked nice, and I knew Peter would as well. I walked out from the small area and saw Henry and Peter waiting for me. Well, that is a nice swimsuit, Emily, Henry said. I knew I picked the right one, Peter said. I agree, this is a nice swimsuit. Henry, your turn. Henry headed into the tent with his suit. I jumped into the lagoon that Peter had brought us to. It was nice and warm, as if it was being heated. I splashed Peter in the face just when Henry jumped in. Woohoo! Henry called as he jumped into the lagoon. A wave crashed over me from the splash. Henry! I called out just as Peter flew into the air to dive in. An even bigger wave crashed over me and Henry, so big that I went under for a minute. What was that for? Henry called to Peter. Let the games begin! Peter shouted into the cool evening air. He splashed me in the face, so I splashed him back. Henry got into the fight by taking a bucket and filling it up with water, then dumping it onto Peter's head. Oh, it is on! And indeed it was. We splashed each other for 2 hours, without even taking a break. Finally, at 11, we were too tired to continue. That was awesome! Henry managed to gasp out before collapsing onto the ground. We collapsed in a huddle so that we could try and keep warm. That didn't work, so Peter lit a bonfire. That, on the other hand, did work. Thank you, I whispered over to Peter. He grinned at me, happy that I had had a lot of fun. "You are welcome," Peter said. He then went down, falling asleep. Henry was already far into the depths of sleep. I picked him up and used my magic to carry Peter back to camp. They would be surprised in the morning when they woke up in their beds. "Emily, what happened to them?" Felix asked as I walked into the camp. "Oh, they both fell asleep. Nothing too horrible," I replied. I dropped Henry off in his bed first, then brought Peter to our room. I then got in and fell asleep. The end of chapter 37, I think. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed.